guest. I've been trying to interview him for a long time, and that's only my schedule, which has kept us apart. And I'm very grateful to introduce Steve G. Jones. How are you today, Steve?
Oh, I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
You are. I know. You really are. I'm doing very, very well, and thank you for asking.
Sure.
Steve caught my attention. I like to be captured by extraordinary people. And this has to do, this attraction, with our mutual interest in hypnotherapy. Steve has been doing hypnosis now for over 27 years. He's written numerous books on the subject, 25 or more. And, of course, he comes out of an education background. He has his doctorate in education. And so you can find him on the web under Steve G. Jones, and you can buy some of his marvelous products, which include self-hypnosis in so many different areas. And I've listened to many of them myself, and they're so helpful. And so, Steve, we're so glad that you got back to hypnosis before it became popular again. You must have encountered some resistance from the wider community 27 years ago with mesmerism and the rest of the fears that we have about the deep unconscious. How did you find hypnotherapy in your career, and what attracted you?
Well, I was lucky. I was exposed to it when I was just a kid in high school. I was in the early 80s. I was in Riverside Military Academy, which is a high school that I was sent to, a military school. You know, a lot of kids' parents threaten to send them to military school or boarding school, but they don't follow through. Well, mine followed through, and there I was in military school. Yeah, it happens. So I was looking for some kind of escape, mental, spiritual, what have you, and I found a book on hypnosis at a bookstore in town. This was in Gainesville, Georgia, that the military school was. They let us go to town a few times a week. And at a bookstore, I found a book called The Complete Guide to Hypnosis by Leslie Lacron, who is no longer with us. He was a PhD psychologist who wrote just a paperback book about how to do hypnosis. So for a kid, it was enough to get me started. And I started hypnotizing my roommates, making them do silly things. And I eventually learned that I could use my powers for good. The smart kids came to me wanting to study more efficiently, and the athletes came to me wanting to exercise more efficiently and do better in sports. And all these years later, I'm still doing the same thing, except the smart kids are NASA, and the athletes are the Dodgers.
How lovely. And so you are very well known in this field, it seems, after these years. You've been on many radio shows and television shows, and I had no idea, though, that you were hypnotizing the Dodgers.
Yes, when I had my office in Beverly Hills, a couple of the members of their team came to me for some extra help, and we worked on a few issues. It's amazing how well sports figures take to hypnotherapy and things such as anchoring and so forth. They really enjoy it, and teams are always looking for any kind of edge they can use to improve their performance.
Of course. At NASA, you work with the astronauts or the engineers. How do you help our society with NASA?
I worked with somebody who worked for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and I worked with her on a few issues, and spent some time together in sessions, and just helped her improve the things that she was working on.
I hear you. And so what is it about hypnosis that attracts you? Do you see the benefit to society? Do you see the benefit to the individual? What is it that's so wonderful about hypnosis? And I agree it's wonderful, too. I'm just wondering what you've seen.
Well, for me, it brought me out of my shell. I was a kid who was very reserved and shy and not really involved in school or in life, going back to my high school years in the early 80s. And it opened up a world for me. It opened up the possibilities of me getting out there and just integrating with the world and finding my place. And it also helped me find what I wanted to focus on in college, which as an undergraduate was psychology. And it really just helped define how I could fit in with the world in terms of doing my part to help out. Otherwise, like so many people, I would have been kind of floundering, wondering for years, what I was going to be when I grew up and so forth. So for me, it provided a career, but before that, it provided, through learning self-hypnosis, it provided just more power in my life, more confidence, more motivation, and more direction. And I'm talking about using hypnosis to hypnotize myself in order to bring these things out.
And so, how did you hypnotize yourself? What do you use the traditional hypnotic inductions and deepening and suggestion and then reawakening? Is hypnotizing someone else similar to hypnotizing yourself?
Yes, I do use the procedure that you mentioned, and yes, hypnotizing yourself is similar to hypnotizing someone else. I use as I teach my students around the world, I use a five-step process with an induction, just relaxing someone into a hypnotic state using beautiful scenery and involving all of the senses, and then a deepening, which is just a counting backwards from 10 to 1 as something goes downward, such as the sun setting on a beach, for example, or the person themselves walking down a hill. Counting from 10 to 1, intensifying the work done in the induction. And then the script, which is the main part of the hypnotherapy session, where I'm just giving suggestions for change, being more motivated, more confident, talking specifically about what that person needs or what I need. And by the way, when I do this for myself, I just make a recording and listen to it. And then after that is amnesia, which is where I attempt to scramble the conscious recollection that I would normally have after the session so that I'm not analyzing it. And then transtermination, which at the end of most of my recordings is simply telling someone they'll go to sleep or telling myself I will go to sleep. Unless I was making a recording for myself for use during the daytime, then I would just count myself up to the count of 3 for transtermination. And so those are the 5 parts of the hypnosis or self-hypnosis session: induction, deepening, script, amnesia, and transtermination.
And so you call the transtermination the re-alerting, or are those comparable?
Re-alerting, yes. You're just waking, coming back up to full awakening consciousness.
Okay. That's what I thought you were saying. And do you count for that also?
I do. I count upward from 1 to 3. For the induction, for the deepening, I count backwards from 10 to 1, signifying a downward motion going down into peaceful rest. And for the transtermination, I count upward from 1 to 3.
And so the heart of this is the script. That's where you make the suggestions, correct?
Right. That's the distinguishing factor between a hypnosis session and a hypnotherapy session. The therapy happens in the script. That's where you're imparting all the ideas about change.
I see. So shall we be referring to the total process as hypnosis? Or they're not interchangeable, you're saying?
Well, to look at it somewhat mathematically, I would say all hypnotherapy is hypnosis, but not all hypnosis is hypnotherapy. Because you can have a hypnosis session without having the script, without having the change. You can just relax yourself and use it as a meditation session where you're not working on anything, you're just bringing yourself into hypnosis and bringing yourself out. That would be hypnosis. Hypnotherapy would be where we use the script. So again, all hypnotherapy is hypnosis, but not all hypnosis is hypnotherapy unless there's a script.
Exactly. And so do you call yourself a hypnotist?
I call myself, if I were living in the state where you live, Florida, I would call myself a hypnotist because of legal considerations. However, I do not live in that state, so I call myself a hypnotherapist. It's a it's a legal consideration these days. And I would say again, mathematically, all hypnotherapists are hypnotists, but not all hypnotists are hypnotherapists, because we have stage hypnotists who put on shows. I went to a show the other day in Las Vegas. A few friends of mine have hypnosis shows. They're very entertaining. I actually got on stage and was hypnotized. Now, that's a hypnotist doing that. A hypnotherapist would have someone like myself. I'm a hypnotherapist. I'd have someone in an office, and we would be working on weight loss or stopping smoking or overcoming fear of flying or something along those lines. So again, all hypnotherapists can be considered hypnotists, but not all hypnotists are hypnotherapists, because some of them just do stage.
Yes, and the therapy, of course, relates to healing. And so what is the healing process? Something about subconscious, something about repositioning the I don't know, you call it recognition, or what is the actual process of healing that goes on here in your mind?
Well, it really depends on what you're working on. Sometimes, for smoking, for example, it's aversion therapy is the primary tool that's useful for stopping smoking, making the cigarette equivalent to something that somebody doesn't like, such as eating liver, for example. Sometimes it's just, and that would also be considered creating a new association. In many cases, we're creating a new association. For example, when people have phobias of snakes or any bugs, spiders, heights, airplanes, anything they're afraid of, we can create a new association in their mind, which would be the association between that thing or that event and fun or peace or happiness. Whereas the current association that they walk in the office with is fear. They associate that with death and dying and injury and so forth. So we change that association. So depending on what we're working on, the therapy can take a number of different forms and can be defined differently.
And so you do believe that when you're hypnotizing someone and providing this sort of new association and reforming of thoughts, are you in the unconscious or are you in the subconscious? Where is the person when you're making this suggestion? Do you think of it as a part of their psyche?
To answer your questions, you are in their subconscious mind, and yes, I do consider that to be part of their psyche. Sometimes it is referred to as the unconscious mind. Typically, I refer to it as the subconscious mind. It's as the word sub implies, it's below the level of consciousness, subconscious, sort of like an iceberg. That's the way I picture the mind. Most of it is underneath the water. That would be the subconscious mind, and the part above the water would represent the conscious mind. Although we think that the part above the water is running the show, we know that the part below the water is the greater mass and is actually running the show. It's directing where the iceberg is going to go. Similar with humans, conscious mind is a small part of us. The subconscious mind, though we're not aware of it in most cases, is what's running the show. So that's what we tap into during hypnotherapy.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And now, you're saying that people come to you with a variety of issues. I think you used the word issues. And so I'm wondering if they're coming with desires, for example, to achieve better, as you mentioned. I mean, these are not necessarily people with symptoms or mental illnesses. And so do you approach the people with abilities to achieve and desires to achieve a little bit differently from people who present with symptoms, or are we all talking about the same process?
Well, it depends. So if somebody wants to make more money, for example, that's a different procedure than if somebody is having a psychosomatic situation. For example, they're having pain when a doctor has diagnosed them and determined that there shouldn't be any pain because there's no organic cause, and they have narrowed it down to a psychosomatic situation, meaning that the the mind is affecting the body. The procedure for helping someone overcome that would be different than the procedure for helping someone make more money. But in all cases, we're reprogramming the subconscious mind.
Exactly. And so you do treat people who come with some symptoms. Do you also work with people who have depression, anxiety, trauma, and other forms of mental illness?
I do, as long as I have a doctor's referral from a medical doctor or a PhD psychologist. Usually it comes from an MD psychiatrist or a PhD psychologist licensed in that state, a written referral. And I draw the line when it comes to childhood trauma. I do not work with childhood trauma, any repressed memories about Uncle so-and-so doing such and such. I don't delve into those cases. I refer those out to a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Sure. And do you occasionally work with anxiety, such as post-traumatic stress, or do you feel comfortable in that arena?
I do, and we're seeing, as a result of the military, we're seeing a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder patients these days. So we're seeing soldiers coming back from battle and killing their spouses, and the military is very concerned about this. So I'm seeing more cases related to that being produced by the military. The military has always been, unfortunately, a source of creating post-traumatic stress disorder. Anytime that somebody is in a battlefield situation, they're going to have some stress. It's just a normal byproduct of what we have to do for national defense. However, we are seeing an increase in cases now, and so, yes, I do take those.
So you will take those cases?
Yes.
Now, can you talk a little bit about some of your books, please, Steve? I mean, where did you begin in your writing career, and where have you evolved?
I think my first published book was around 2007, but the material was written far before that, and that was Basic Hypnotherapy for Professionals. It just teaches people, mostly for my classes, my academic classes, it teaches them how to do hypnosis. And then I published Advanced Hypnotherapy for Professionals. By professionals, I mean people who are hypnotherapists or who want to use hypnosis in their practice, such as yourself. And so it guides them in a very academic way through learning hypnosis. I then delved into things such as the law of attraction. I published a book with a friend of mine named Frank Mangano called You Can Attract It. Very popular book about just using positive thinking, focusing on the positive, and manifesting what you want in your life. And we can look at that in two ways. One is the scientific way, in which, yes, if you think positively, you're going to get more things done. And the other is the metaphysical way, which is that you put out positive vibes, if you will, to the universe, and those come back to you. So it's been popular on both of those levels, both scientific and metaphysical.
Lovely. And so are you working on something now that we can look forward to you publishing?
Well, I've in addition to the 3 books I've mentioned, I've also have about 23 other ones out, and they're mostly detailed information about how to perform hypnotherapy sessions, going through the script that we talked about, offering various scripts for various things such as stopping smoking, losing weight, and becoming motivated. I'm not currently working on a book right now. I released Power of Thin about a year ago, again with my friend Frank Mangano. And we don't currently have a book in the works right now. There is a, let me see, we're doing a product with Joe Vitale and Patty Stanger. Patty Stanger is the millionaire matchmaker on Bravo's show Millionaire Matchmaker. I was on that show as one of the millionaires and became friends with Patty. And we're now working on a product together. It's called Attracting a Soulmate, and that's with Joe Vitale from The Secret also. So the website for that is attractingasoulmate.com. That's a product just to help people attract their soulmate, to get them thinking positively and getting out there and drawing the love that they deserve to them.
And your friend Frank Mangano, he also has some websites and products. What's he into?
Frank is into natural health. His parents were suffering from some medical issues related to a number of things a few years back. He started looking into mainstream therapy and found it to be ineffective, so he looked into alternate therapy. So he started a website called naturalhealthontheweb.com, which offers a lot of alternate therapy for people who don't either don't want to go to medical doctors, or who have gone to medical doctors and not gotten the answers they wanted, or who want to use this information as an adjunct to the medical knowledge they already have.
And that's wonderful of you to mention these colleagues and associates. And so if someone did want to become, I don't know if I'm using the right word, certified in hypnosis, or at least do so legally and well, how would one find training in this and the different levels of approval?
You can just go to hypnosiscertified.com. Hypnosiscertified.com will offer the training in through my association. I run the American Alliance of Hypnotists, and you can check that out at americanallianceofhypnotists.org. But the main website where we offer the training through is hypnosiscertified.com, and you can become certified at the basic and advanced levels through that website. And the certification is solid. You have to do homework. You have to send in audios. The idea sprang when I was working on my doctorate. It sprang from the fact that Ivy League schools are now offering online training. And since they're doing that, we decided to do that. We decided to take something that could be put into an online format and go ahead and do that. So it's very robust with an online student resources center where students can get on and share information, share audios and videos about what they're working on and different techniques. They can also see me doing different techniques in the Student Resources Center. And so they get a very full education, but they get to do that from the comfort of their own homes.
Wonderful service. And then would these individuals who study with you be able to perform hypnosis legally, or would they be able to perform hypnotherapy legally, or what will they really truly be able to do without running afoul of any boundaries?
In the United States, the various states regulate hypnotherapy in different ways. For example, where you live, Florida is one of the most strictly regulated states concerning hypnotherapy. So we've produced a publication which is available at americanallianceofhypnotists.org. You can review that publication beforehand and see what the states in the United States require in terms of training. Some states require that you are a licensed therapist in addition to your hypnotherapy training. Other states, such as Georgia and Nevada, for example, don't require anything additional. So it's state by state.
So it's really important to double check that, in your opinion, of course, or you wouldn't have put out a book about it.
Right. We had our legal person prepare, I think it's a 30-page report on that. He researched every single state in the United States and prepared a document concerning that so that everyone would be advised. Most states don't care. Florida cares to an extreme. California cares somewhat. But most states do not care, and they do not have any regulations concerning this. But yes, you need to be aware.
Of course, hypnotherapy is becoming more popular. I think because of the weight loss and the smoking, but there were groups not so long ago who thought this was trickery or witchcraft or something. Have you run into these resistances?
Yes, there'll always be groups like that. It's always going to be sort of a fringe therapy. People look at it and they see movies such as Curse of the Jade Scorpion by Woody Allen, in which Woody Allen played a character who was programmed hypnotically to rob his neighbors and to rob banks. Someone would call him on the phone and say, Madagascar. And when he heard that, he would have to either rob his neighbor or rob a bank. And so...
Well, that's not true, though. You can't really do that, can you?
That you're right, it's not true. However, enough of this stuff gets out there that people either think, well, maybe it is true that they can do that, or hypnosis is just hokey and for entertainment, and it's something that's created by Hollywood. So the disservice that Hollywood has done is fairly tremendous in the efforts to make money from movies. They have somewhat discredited hypnosis. And so because of that, and because it's going to continue, I just saw a movie recently, I forget the name of it, but something about hypnosis where somebody was programmed to do something. Because those movies are going to keep coming out, we're going to remain in the fringe until there's some sort of overall education about hypnosis, which I don't feel is ever going to happen. It doesn't seem like it is. So, because it's just too fun to put in movies. So we're going to... this is going to be an ongoing battle. It's nothing new. It's just the same old battle. So, but we win over as many people as possible.
Excuse me, Steve. People think that we can hypnotize people to do what they don't want to do, or that it's some sort of unconscious, will that we're. How can you say eliciting that's not under their control, and that's just not true. So, for those listening here, that we really can't do that, and just thank God we can't. Everything that's in you is something that's part of you. It's not a foreign, intervention that we're doing. We're just letting you get deeper in touch with your own desires and needs. So.
Right.
I think that's fair to say. And so, can you talk about, please, your website and what you're selling on there? You have some wonderful tapes.
Yes, we do have some recordings. We have CDs and MP3s. About 750 of my products are available in CD format. The rest of my 9,000 products are only available in MP3 downloads. And my main website is stevegjones.com. We also have a website that sells my products called betterlivingwithhypnosis.com. And again, the certification programs are available at hypnosiscertified.com. But on those websites, you're going to find a tremendous amount of information. A lot of issues are dealt with on those websites. And the reason I have so many products is because people would write in the past and say, do you have a product on this? And I would write back saying, no, I don't, but I will soon. And we put that on the to-do list, and we created it. So we spent a few years just creating the things that people wanted, the hypnotherapy sessions that people requested, and that's how we produced a robust body of work.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful. And so a lot of it is characterized by the, shall we say, the presenting problem, whether you're overeating or smoking or experiencing other problems. And some of it has to do with success, not just solving problems, but in some cases becoming more successful in an already successful life, correct?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, when I work one-on-one with people, I usually work with high-functioning people, people who are not suffering from any detectable disorder. However, they just want to do better. They've got a gap between where they are and where they want to be. But my hypnotherapy recordings available on the websites are designed to deal with a number of issues, to deal with all sorts of issues that can crop up for people. And in many cases, they are issues that have been diagnosed by a medical doctor, and people have been through the mainstream therapy, the mainstream treatment, and that's been to no avail. It hasn't worked for them, so they're turning to something alternate. I would always say consult a medical doctor first. That should be your first line of attack, and that's always mine. If I have an issue, I go to a medical doctor first. In addition to that, you may want to use hypnosis, and if that doesn't work for you, under the direction and blessings of your doctor, you may want to give hypnotherapy a shot.
I couldn't agree with you more. And so if people actually wanted you to hypnotize them and you to provide them with the hypnotherapy, the healing, how could they make an appointment with you. Does that even occur for you, Steve? Are you mostly teaching, or do you see people?
I do see people. They can go to stevegjones.com and they can schedule a session there. There's a link for scheduling appointments at my main website, which is stevegjones.com.
I would love to come see you, but I'm just not sure what I want.
Well, some people just come in to get a general session.
The script.
Some people just come in for a general session because they want to experience hypnosis.
Of course. A lot of people are very curious about it. And it is a cutting-edge therapy, and I do hope, frankly, that we do see a reemergence, a popularity, a growing use of hypnosis, because it is such a powerful tool. It's not a joke. It's a very, very serious art and science. And I just want to say how grateful we all are that you have pursued this so assiduously, and that you've provided such a body of knowledge. And it's just you're just a gift. So,
my pleasure.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, Steve?
Well, I always like to leave people with this, which is a concept that comes from The Wizard of Oz, believe it or not. And there's a song by a musical group called America a few years back, which said, Oz never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. And that song, to me, means that the Wizard of Oz didn't provide anything to the Tin Man that he didn't already possess. And it's sort of like hypnotherapy or mainstream therapy or any sort of healing. All we're doing in that is reminding you of the power that you already have. You have the ability to do these things. You have the ability to stop smoking, to become more confident, more motivated, overcome fears, etc. But sometimes we need a gentle reminder of how wonderful, powerful, great, and amazing we are. And that's where things such as hypnotherapy come into play, just to remind you of the greatness you already have.
Oh, that is so true. And thank you again for coming on the show, Steve. I'm sure you will hear from some of the listeners, and keep going. You're a marvelous addition to the science and art of hypnotism. So thanks again, Steve.
Well, thank you for having me.